Hello, everyone. My name is Iris Ramirez. Thank you for being here today. This episode focuses on understanding intimate partner violence through a trauma informed educational lens. We are going to explore three essential areas: the neurobiology of trauma, the coercive control, and the cycle of abuse, and why survivors don't just simply leave. These topics are often misunderstood because people tend to focus only on visible harm. However, abuse operates at neurological, psychological, emotional, and systemic levels. To truly understand survivor behavior, we must understand what trauma does to the brain and body, how power and control function in relationships, and real world barriers survivors face. My goal here is to provide psychoeducation, meaning clear evidence based teaching, so listeners leave with a deeper understanding of what is happening beneath the surface of abuse. Neurobiology of trauma usually, focuses on brain and nervous system as well as the survivor behavior. Trauma is not simply an emotional experience, it is also a biological event that reshapes how the brain and nervous system function. When a person experiences repeated threat, the brain activates its survivor circuit. The amygdala, which is the almond shape in your brain, often called the alarm center, um, the brain's alarm center scans for constant danger. When it detects a threat, it triggers the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. The fight prepares the body to confront danger. The flight prepares to escape. The freeze embolizes to reduce harm, and the fawn involves appeasing a threat to maintain safety. These automatic survival responses occur before conscious reasoning and are designed to preserve life. And for example, in chronic abuse, this alarm system becomes overreactive. The nervous system remains in a state of hyperarousal, meaning that the body is constantly prepared for danger. Stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline circulate at elevated levels, affecting sleep, digestion, immune functioning, and emotional regulation. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, which is this part of the brain responsible for planning, judgment, and impulse control, becomes less effective under chronic stress. Survivors may struggle with concentration, decision making, emotional regulation, because the brain is prioritizing survivor over higher reasoning. The hippocampus, which organizes memory, may also be impacted. Trauma memories are often stored as sensory fragments rather than a clear timeline. This explains why survivors may appear inconsistent or even overwhelmed when recounting events. It reflects neurobiological processing, not dishonesty. Behavioral wise, these neurological changes can appear as hypervigilance, emotional reactivity, dissociation, shutdown, or difficulty trusting others. These responses are adaptive within danger. They are the brain's attempt to protect the individual. So imagine Anna, whose partner frequently jails unpredictably. Even when nothing is happening, her body remains tense. A raised voice triggers a racing heart and the freeze response. Anna is not being dramatic. Her amygdala has learned to associate raised voices with danger. Her nervous system reacts instantly to protect her. This is the survival wiring in action. Now, consider Marcus, who experiences emotional intimidation. During conflict, he shuts down and cannot respond. Later, he feels ashamed for freezing. Marcus's freeze response is neurological protection. His brain is prioritizing safety, not communication. So, understanding this reframes his action as adaptive rather than weak. The key takeaway is this: trauma reshapes the brain, function in ways that influence behavior. Survivor responses are biological survivor strategies. So let's move on to coercive control and the cycle of abuse. This includes power, conditioning, and behavioral patterns. In intimate partner violence is fundamentally about power and control, not simply anger or isolated conflict. Coercive control is a pattern of behaviors designed to dominate a partner's autonomy. This may include isolation from social support, financial restriction, monitoring communication, intimidation, gaslighting, and emotional manipulation. Over time, coercive control alters a survivor's sense of self. They may question their judgment, feel dependent, or believe escape is impossible. This psychological conditioning is gradual and often invisible to outsiders. Abuse frequently follows a cycle. One, tension building phase. This includes anxiety increases and survivors attempt to prevent escalation. Two, incident phase. This includes emotional, verbal, and physical abuse occurring. And reconciliation phase. Apologies, affection, or promises of change. And then four, the calm phase. A temporary stability before tension returns. So this cycle creates intermittent reinforcement, a powerful psychological mechanism where unpredictable rewards strengthen emotional attachment. Moments of kindness activate hope. He's not gonna do that no more. She won't do that anymore because she loves me, right? Making survivors emotionally invested despite harm. So behaviorally, survivors may become hyper aware of their partner's moods, right? Attempt to appease conflict or internalize blame. No, it's my fault why he's acting that way. No, it's my fault why she's acting that way. We start making up excuses. Um, these behaviors are learned survivor strategies within a power imbalance. So consider Lena, whose partner insults her during arguments but later apologizes and promises change. During reconciliation, Lena feels relief and hope. Maybe he changes this time. This emotional contrast strengthens attachment. Lena becomes invested in the belief that improvement is possible even as the cycle repeats. Now, imagine Daniel, whose partner isolates him from friends, controls finance under the guise of protection. Over time, Daniel doubts his independence. This is a coercive control reshaping his autonomy. If I have the money, maybe I do waste this on something else that's not important. Maybe she's right. Maybe she deserves my money, right? They start with all those, questions and thoughts, right? The gradual erosion of confidence makes living overwhelming. The cycle and control patterns demonstrate that abuse is sustained through psychological conditioning, not isolated incidents. Now, let's move forward to why survivors don't just leave. This involves emotional safety, financial, and structural barriers. The phrase just leave oversimplifies a complex reality. Why? Because living an abusive relationship is statistically the most dangerous period. When control is threatened, escalation may occur. Survivors must evaluate immediate safety risk. Um, Emotionally, trauma bonding forms when cycles of harm and reconciliation strengthens attachment. Survivors may still care deeply for their partners or hope to change. Financial barriers include housing instability, child care responsibilities, limited employment access, and economic dependency. I can't leave because if I leave, where am I going to go? Right? Or I can't leave her because if I leave her, she's going to take my kid away. Right? Survivors may fear homelessness or inability to support children. Now it goes to structural barriers, it involves stigma, cultural expectations, immigration concerns, legal fears, or lack of accessible services. I can't leave because if I leave, he may call immigration on me. And what am I going to do over there? I don't know nothing over there, right? Or I can't leave because if I leave him, my mom is gonna tell me that I'm not a good wife, right? And in our culture, we don't leave just to leave, right? Um, Now, behavioral survivors are making calculated survival decisions, not passively accepting abuse. So imagine Elena, who wants to leave but fears retaliation. With children and limited finances, she calculates risk constantly. Staying temporarily feels safer than escalating danger without a secure plan. Now consider Jordan, who remains in an emotionally abusive relationship due to housing instability and fear of social judgment. He weighs uncertainty against familiar harm. Both survivors are navigating survivor constraints, not really choosing abuse. Understanding trauma neurobiology, coercive control, survivor barriers allows us to replace judgment with empathy. Survivor behavior reflects adaptation to danger, emotional conditioning, and systemic realities. Some people can't leave because, of whatever reason it may be. A trauma informed approach, asks not why didn't they leave, right? But what conditions made leaving unsafe? Education empowers compassionate support and informed response. So, with that being said, thank you for engaging in this important conversation.